Auroth came out with the new Blood Knight top meta builds for dungeon and farming. Everyone says that Blood Knight is trash, but you know, I still feel like it is a quite, you know, nice class to play. You're definitely gonna have to sweat a lot. But the good thing is, if you're strong enough, you can make anything work, and that's what I think is gonna happen now.
So first we're going to take a look at the skills, and for primary attack I use Shadow's Edge, in the first skill slot I use Shroud of Night, in the second skill slot I use Umbral Lance, in the third skill slot I use Spear Flurry, and in the fourth and final skill slot...
So is he gonna use like that, those, it's like with Umbral Lance, man, like I saw it's like some Blood Knights, they were just like spamming things like every direction. It was kind of crazy.
Cloud. For set pieces, I use 4 pieces of V2 for extra beneficial effect duration and extra attack speed, and I also use 4 pieces of Grace for extra damage output.
Alright, standard.
Let's continue and take a look at the SSS. In the helmet slot, I use a Brace of Fangs, and what it says is that Mephitic Cloud now engulfs a single enemy in toxic fumes, causing them to take increasing continual damage. The toxic fumes also explode, dealing damage to nearby enemies whenever the effect expires or when the target dies. So when I try this skill out, it looks like this. It's a single target, and then I just let go, and you can see that I will apply this poison effect there, toxic fumes. One reason why I also picked this essence is because the cooldown is quite low, and for this build we want to have low cooldowns, and I'm going to explain to you why very soon. In the chest slot, I use Cracked Spirit, and what it says is that Shroud of Night...
I already used like that instance in PvP. I was trying to do like this damage over time Blood Knight, but I actually disliked a lot that instance. Like, you have to target it. I just prefer like the Mephitic Cloud, that you have the cloud around you. It's gonna do damage and also it's gonna heal you. It was like way more comfortable.
Night now grants you Echoing Nightmare, causing some of your skills to conjure a shadowy apparition to duplicate the skill cast after a short delay. Additionally, you gain increased movement speed, stacking with each skill used. I would say that this essence is quite similar to the wizard helmet called Terminus Facade, because what this will do is that it will increase our movement speed a lot. And now when I use Shroud of Night and then I use Mephitic Cloud, you can see that I will have this shadowy apparition that will also cast it. And now you can see on the target that there will actually be 2 toxic fumes on it, thanks to this chest piece. Let's go.
Oh, so it's like a mirror copy. Interesting.
Continue and take a look at the shoulder slot.
This is not the one that the Blood Knights are using in PvP, right? No, the clones is a different one, because the clones spawn like 2 clones that they start auto-attacking.
Hunter's World, which is the newest shoulder essence, and what it says is that Umbral Lance cooldown is reduced by 0.32 seconds for each enemy hit within 6 seconds, up to a maximum of 1.6 seconds. I use the shoulder because I want to reduce the cooldown of Umbral Lance, of course. It's decent for this build, for sure. It's a pity that this effect can only happen once every 6 seconds. A lot of similar essences doesn't work that way. If it would work like the other essences, I mean that it wouldn't have an internal cooldown, this would actually be very strong, and it's a pity that they didn't design the shoulder that way instead. But still, this shoulder makes the cut for this build, and when we look at the other Umbral Lance essences later on here, you will understand why. In the shoulder slot, I use Excessive Exuberance, and what it says is that Spear Flurry is now a forward dash that damages all enemies.
I love these answers. These answers here is probably the main cause of Blood Knight being so fun. It's just so fun to play with it.
Along your path. Using other skills instantly refreshes one charge. And yes, this is good for several reasons. First of all, it deals quite a lot of damage because I can use it a lot. It adds mobility. And of course, it also syncs extremely well with the chest piece. So if you remember when I use Mephitic Cloud, you can see that thanks to the chest piece, I have 2 dot effects on the target. But the same goes for when I use these dashes. You can see that there is also a shadowy apparition that will dash together with me. And let's move on and take a look at the first main hand slot, which is called First Bloodwalker. And what it says is that when Umbral Lance hits the same enemy 3 times within 3 seconds, it deals some extra damage. Maybe it's more interesting than to take a look at the first offhand, which is called Lost Companions. And what that says is that Umbral Lance now throws several spears in all directions.
Oh, there it is. This is the answers that I've been seeing all the Blood Knights using. This is the one. It seems quite interesting though.
That return to you, damaging enemies in their path. So this is a lot like the original Lightning Nova skill for the wizards. So whenever I use Umbral Lance, you will see these daggers that fly out in a circle around me, and then they return, and they will of course deal damage to all the enemies they pass through. Also pay close attention now.
And probably is actually gonna solve a lot of the issues that Blood Knight was having. It was like it had a lot of like a AoE ability, you know, lack of damage, and now probably it's gonna be fixed.
Whenever I use Umbral Lance, the cooldown will go down as soon as I hit a target, thanks to the shoulder, and that's why the shoulder is so good. And remember that whenever I use a skill, I will also refresh 1 charge of the Spear Flurry.
So this is another piano build?
Deal tons of burst damage with this build. In the second main slot, I use Blotnif. I don't know if it's pronounced correctly, but what it says is that Umbral Lance deals up to 76% increased damage the further away you are from the target. When I'm fighting a boss, I'm usually quite close because I want to hit it with the Spear Flurries, but in open areas where I have to kill a lot of monsters, this main hand is very strong for the Umbral Lance. When I hit a target far away, we can see that I will deal tons of damage to it. What is also important to mention here is that thanks to the chest piece,
So I just saw that, you know, it's not like a perfect AoE. Because if you see here...
Also important to mention here is that thanks to
the blood, the Umber Lance was like, if it doesn't really hit the target, like it was like coming like on the side of the dummy, and there's like these gaps in the middle. He actually does not hit them.
I also throw 2 Umber Lances every time I use the skill.
Yeah, see, it didn't hit the dummy.
Have a shadow apparition. So when we summarize this build, we will see that all of the skills actually works very well with this chest. Finally, I also have Hanging Chalice in the second offense slot, and what it says is that after Shadow's Edge hits an enemy, 2 blades ricochet out randomly targeting nearby enemies and
do you really have time to even use a primary attack on this build?
Dealing damage to them. So whenever I use Shadow's Edge, you can see now that there will be other daggers that are ricocheting off the target behind it there. This is the optimal choice if I want to add more AoE damage, which works fine for dungeons. I could go for more single target damage, and in that case, I would switch this out for Mercy's Plight.
Attack speed.
But for dungeons, in general, both works fine, but I prefer Hanging Chalice after...
I think like maybe the Ravager. I love the Ravager, man. Like, it's so much better in my opinion.
Trying all of them out. So we're going to take a look at the legendary gem soon, but let me just explain to you the purpose of this build. What we want to do is that we want to activate Shroud of Night, and then we're gonna just use the skills in fast successions. We will have maximum movement speed all the time. We can move very fast.
Oh, then he has cooldowns, and then you can hit some primary attacks.
Overall, just a very fun and cool and interactive build to play. What we can also say about this is that there is a huge potential for the future, because thanks to this chest, we will always have high mobility, and whenever we have new skills that have low cooldowns that works with the chest piece, this build might become even stronger. That's why I was hoping for this shoulder slot, for example, to not have a 6-second cooldown, because then you could actually spam the skills a little bit more. And if we compare this to, for example, a wizard build that can also utilize a lot of spamming, this build is very similar, and it will outperform most other builds when you run dungeons. But if we compare it with my recently released wizard build, the wizard has even longer dashes, it has even more spam capabilities. So after the first initial burst, I would probably say that I perform a little bit.
Yeah, you see, now he is in cooldowns. He cannot do anything. So now probably is the time that he's gonna spam like the primary
better
attack.
With the wizard, but for a Blood Knight, this is still a very, very strong build. And when I play this in dungeons, I managed to outpace most of my teammates, which will enable me to deal the most damage. Let us, of course, also take a look at the legendary gems I'm using. I'm using Blood-Soaked Jade for extra damage.
So you see, even Auroth, look at this. Oh my god, he actually... Oh, guys, low-key is actually using the setup that I use. I just like replace like the Fervent Fang for the Misery Elixir, but the rest is exactly these. Because 2 stars in this game, they are actually cracked, guys.
Rolling Consequence,
absolutely cracked.
Chance, Bottled Hope for some extra damage, Colossus Engine for extra damage, and this works very well because most of the damage here is skill damage. I also use Spectre Glass, Pain Clasp, Fervent Fang, and Morn Skull. And of course, if you don't have all of these gems, you can swap in Berserker's Eye, you can maybe swap in the new 1-star gem that is coming out. There are, of course, many different options here. Feel free to experiment. This is just an example of something that...
Yeah, basically anything that adds damage, it's always a good exchange.
Works well. We should, of course, also take a look at the Paragon. I'm using the Harbinger category, and I use Fate, Blur, Ambush, Hone Steel, and Quickstep. Quickstep will decrease the cooldown of the dash a little bit. It doesn't really...
Oh, like, look at... This is interesting. Why is he using here the Overloaded and not, like, the Death's Release? That's actually curious.
Do a lot for this build. The stars of this build is, of course, Ambush. That will give me a lot of damage.
Maybe for the bosses?
Steel, it will also give me critical hit chance.
Oh, he didn't explain. He didn't explain. Oh my god. You know what? I don't know. I'm curious to know why he picked the Overloaded, because I feel like personally, Death's Release will just make more sense in dungeons.
Damage, and thanks to Hone Steel, it will also give me critical hit chance. Let us, of course, try out the build here at the dummy just to see how it performs. So let's just...
Okay, 3 billion damage, Blood Knight, coming.
And you can see that the damage goes up quite a lot. It's mostly high burst. And in dungeons, that will be enough to kill most monsters and most bosses.
It must feel good, man, to play one account like this, right? You just do one dash and everything just dies, man.
In quite quick succession. The issue with the build is that it starts to die off a little bit after some time. And the main issue here is that the shoulder is not as strong as it could have been. I hope that they actually buff this shoulder, because if they do, this build will be one of the strongest for PvE content in the game. And I think that the Blood Knight deserves it after a long time of quite stale gameplay and nothing really new, in my opinion, that works well. Now it's time to, of course, also showcase this build in a dungeon. So let's go and
let's go. I want to see it in action.
So here we are running solo in Cavern of Echoes, and I just wanted to do this run to showcase the damage and the mobility of this build.
Yeah, you see all those spikes?
We will not maybe be able to kill the bosses in one phase, but at least almost. But I think that this is just a nice way to showcase that the damage will be high enough, you will be fast enough, and yeah, it just works very well overall.
I wonder, like, if this is probably not for raids. It doesn't look like it. It just looks like a good casual farming, dungeon grinding build, you know? Probably for raids is still like the good old Shadow's Edge single target.
You want to always activate Shroud of Night as fast as possible, and then you can use 3 dashes just to get up to maximum movement speed as soon as possible. And then when you engage the enemies, you will do so by using Umbral Lance and Mephitic Cloud, and by doing so you will also recharge your dashes thanks to the pants. And as you can see there, we actually managed to kill off this boss in the first phase without having to do the second phase, so the damage output is also very good with this build.
It looks cool. I'll tell you something.
You can just run as fast as possible.
Just for styling points, I think it takes
this area here, we have to
it takes the cake.
Often,
I love to see builds that they have all these effects around it. It just makes it look cooler.
I've talked about it before. The most important thing in dungeons is to run from point A to B as fast as possible, and then you just need enough damage to kill off the monsters fast enough. And now we're doing this run solo, and yeah, otherwise these guys would have been melted already if I had my teammates with me.
Yeah.
And yes, let's take some stuns here. Before
I mean, like, this build, I'm gonna link it to you guys because oh, DS also here, farming alterations. Okay, let's see this.
And equip Siphon Blood instead of Mephitic Cloud, and I also exchange Spectre Glass for Viper's Bite. The reason for this is because I want to have an AoE effect to ensure I deal damage to every monster that I pass.
Yeah. So this is very similar to my farming build, but he's now using the Umber Lance that got like with the offhand. In my opinion, this is a great build.
And I also equip Viper's Bite because that will be enough to kill any mob.
Like, look at this.
So as soon as I just touch a mob, I can just keep running without having to stay around to kill everything off.
Yeah.
And if you see now on the minimap, you can see there that the yellow elite was also dying after a few seconds. And I can just keep running with very high speed and a lot of dashes, and it works very well.
It looks cool. It looks awesome, man. So, guys, go there. Especially if you're a Blood Knight, go drop a like and a subscribe on Auroth. Came out with the new Blood Knight build. Always nice to see Blood Knight getting some love, man. It's definitely one of my favorite classes in the game. But it's rough, man. It's kind of rough from time to time.